damn.
Is it live?
Damn.
So people can write in?
Yes, they absolutely could. And for whatever reason, our music didn't play. So, hey, welcome to Broker Talk. This week I have our former co host, Jim Lowenstern, back to enjoy his special knowledge of all things real estate. Jim is the CEO of Castles Unlimited, now brokered by EXP. Jim, what was the one of the reasons why you moved your entire office from your own brokerage to EXP?
It was going from being unlimited to being um, Uber unlimited. That doesn't mean I was driving a
Yeah,
car to the airport for money. Yeah, I mean, it was just to be able to expand so much further. And the nice thing about, well, one of the nice things about EXP is they take a lot of, if not all, the back office lift, the paperwork, the heavy
right.
lifting of all of that responsibility off not just my shoulders, but all of my entrepreneurs that work with me.
Right.
Not everyone gets it, but for those that do, it's like having, I mean, I hear they have like 1,900 execs, administrators, whatever, running
Right.
around working for us. So it's quite a back office.
It is quite a back office, and it's not just all of the accounting and the compliance and the paperwork are just three or four of the things that they take care of.
Yeah, the
Uh,
mentoring, the coaching, the awesome technology. I mean, they created a VR work environment for all their agents when they had, basically just one agent. They said, well, I envision the future and we're going to have 1 million agents. And if I wanted to have a shareholders meeting with all 1 million of my shareholders, which are all my agents, how would I do that? And Glenn Sanford came up with the technology.
right.
Or actually, I think he rented or leased, the technology and then raised enough money. My guess is to the initial public offering to buy that company, Verbella.
Right, right, and what we're talking about is the meta world that EXP has for all of its agents. So one of the aspects of that is if you have a question, you can go on at any time of day or night, and since it's an international company, you can go in and you have your avatar. You make your own avatar, and you go into this place. There's always someone to talk to get answers to your questions. And anybody who's been an agent knows that the questions come in, Christmas Eve, New Year's Day. They're at horrible times when your office is never open and you just need an answer to this question. Um, I find that to be a huge benefit, even though I try and take those holidays off. But here's a funny thing. I mean, doing open houses on holidays, not Christmas, not Hanukkah, not
3 day weekends.
yeah, especially not Mother's Day. Probably the worst day in the world to do an open house. But
I always do them.
yeah,
Buy your mom, buy your wife a house.
there you go. I've never had any luck
Forget
with it,
about
but
forget about the roses. Buy her a house. You love
right,
her. Buy her a house.
right. Forget dinner. Get her a kitchen. Uh,
That's
I
what
don't
I'm
know
gonna,
if that's
I'm gonna go with the
there you go.
the yeah, the advertising.
Yeah, well, nice hats. Keep the sun off your head. What about the market? Let's talk for a moment about the market in the Boston area, then specifically in the Newton area.
What would you like to know?
Well, how's the market? I mean, the question that we get asked
Uh,
every single day. Uh,
I mean, you know, real estate is agent by agent, block by block, house by house, zip code by zip code. Um, personally, I've probably had the best month I've ever had in 40 years.
This
I don't
month
know.
or last month?
Yeah, I sold 11, $12 million this month.
Awesome.
I mean, if I can keep that up for the whole year, that'll actually add up to real money. I mean, and these are for the most part internet leads. These are people I didn't even know. One was a huge commercial building, literally an office building, and the
Well,
other
that
was,
helps.
yeah, but commercial. I mean, a commercial commission. Uh, I made less than half on that than I did for a residential house that I sold for less than the commercial building.
Yeah.
So, but it's all good. So,
It's all good.
interest rates went up, but when I started in the business, I literally got into the business years ago because interest rates were almost 20%,
Yeah.
and I was selling a property myself. Well, actually, I was having trouble with the real estate agents that I had hired. Eventually, one of them did bring a buyer, but I ended up like doing all the paperwork.
Yeah.
I had to do like a wraparound mortgage, what do they call it, a land contract, and even the attorney. I had to do most of the work. That's how I got into the business. So, but interest rates were almost 20% then. Now you can get probably, would you say 4%, four and a quarter, four and a half? I mean, it's not that horrible. And interest rates may come down a little. Prices are probably going to go up. They always do
Slowly.
eventually.
Right.
Yeah,
I did
it's
an
not.
appraise. I went around with an appraiser today. I have a tenant who wants to buy, so they need to understand what the valuation is, and they'll come at their offer price based on that. But it was really interesting. It was a uh, raised ranch. And there happens to be a lot of those out in Wayland, Massachusetts. We looked at a bunch of them. And it's really interesting that that type of architecture that you walk in the front thing and you go up or you go down. Some people like it, some people don't. There are a lot of them out there, but they're still garnering um, as equal a price by square foot. And I know,
Who likes it, by the way?
well, both the person who owns his house and the tenant. Every tenant I've ever had in there likes it.
So let me give you my opinion on that style of architecture. So I had a listing early this year in Newton, split entry. The people were moving because they brought architects and contractors in because they wanted a larger kitchen.
Yep.
And they got the bid on how much it was going to be to do it. And if they did it right, they probably should do this. And if they did it really right, they should do this. And it was, in other parts of the country, I'm sure it's less, but hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they just did the math. We're going to put all this money in. And then from the street, the curb appeal is now still the same. It's still a split entry. And a split entry, technically speaking, is a slab
Yeah.
construction. There is
Yeah.
no basement.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they sink them a few feet or whatever, but there is no basement,
Right.
or the basement is half the house.
Right.
Yeah, and then people have a problem, with the small entry area. So that house ultimately, we did get a buyer who wanted to buy it and move in and was going to pay full price, but we were up against a time factor, and now the house is just going to be torn down.
Yeah.
So next door, same size lot, also a split entry. The people wanted like another 600,000-700,000 for the house, and I had to explain to them the house that's going up next to you will be worth a lot more than what you're asking for your house, but you're just not going to get it because of the style.
Yeah.
The style really caps it with a split entry,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think what I personally like is almost never, in fact, is never as important as what my client likes. You know, there's
Oh,
styles
yeah.
there's styles of houses that I don't like.
But I
Um,
think you buy that style at a discount. Now,
yeah.
remember why it was built in the first place. You don't really have to do much of an excavation.
Right.
It's just shallow. It also ends up being a very easy house to build in a high water table zone. So it's less construction costs and fits more different types of neighborhoods and
Right.
terrain because
Right.
of the
This
the low
Yeah, this particular property,
no.
for those of you who don't know, a slab is just a cement bottom. You know, it's not the most houses, by the way, in the United States are slab houses. Texas, Florida, anywhere where you were talking about, where
And anywhere where there shouldn't be one, in like Tornado Alley, where you
yeah,
really should have a basement.
yeah,
There's a lot of slabs there.
yeah, yeah,
And these days they're probably building real significant tornado shelters. So they probably are building basements now.
right. Now,
So let's shift to what's new with EXP
um,
if you
what?
want.
Sure, and then we'll get to your most recent book. You've written two books, but let's talk about EXP for a moment. Um,
Yeah, so I'm actually working on the third book now. So 40 years in the business. I'm officially over that 40-year mark. I started when I was, I don't know, probably about 25. So do the math. I'm really old now. But I wrote a book about 5, 6 years ago, Your $1 Million Year in Real Estate. And I was sort of anticipating another book in the future, maybe Your $1 Billion Year in Real Estate, something like that. But it became so clear to me once I started writing it, and I was really compelled to write it because there was so much to tell people about EXP that I really didn't know. I mean, and believe me, I did 10 years of vetting, so I did my homework, contracts, interviewing agents, picking everyone's brain.
Watching
Uh,
what people were doing, you
in
know.
in in back in the day, it was Keller Williams. I used to ask everyone about Keller Williams because that used to be something that I wanted to know about. And honestly, the biggest problem with that is no one knew anything about it. So no matter who I asked about Keller Williams, the best I ever got was, I don't know, but there's someone in my office that does, or I know someone. It was like ridiculous. Or I interviewed on my radio show once a woman in Thousand Oaks. She claimed to have the largest Keller Williams office and said she didn't understand it, but she was making a lot of money. End of story. And it didn't go any further than that. So, yeah, I had to write this book, Your $1 Million Month in Real Estate, because I was learning all this stuff and I wanted to communicate it. And I was getting even some of my own agents, okay, Jim, tell me everything I need to know in 5 minutes. And it just wasn't possible. Now, I know that same person who wanted to know everything in 5 minutes is not going to take 5 hours to read my book. I just know that. But it wasn't written for them. It was written for the people who really wanted to know.
Yeah,
Um, and you're not going to know everything in 5 minutes.
yeah,
Honestly, I
yeah.
made the move over in October. I don't know everything now. I'm still learning stuff.
Right, right.
And I'm,
You know
and
that
I'm
that's really true. And if I hear an agent, I've been around for 40 years or whatever your elevated number is, I'm always curious. Are you still learning? Because there isn't a day that goes by. Because what we do is kind of same from thing to thing, but it's always different because of the people involved, the town involved, the house involved. There's a lot of differences.
So what I found most appealing, forget the technology, forget the business model. I have IP that I've had for decades now, and
Intellectual
I'm
property.
I'm allowed to use it.
Yeah.
I was a franchisee with a company years ago, and they wouldn't let me. I mean, there was things they would let me do, and there were things, I had to
Right.
ask permission, and I still technically have to ask permission with EXP. But whenever I've asked anyone for permission to do anything, the answer's always been yes. So what I used to have was like a company and an office or offices and teams and agents. Now I have something, and these are new terms. I created something called the mega roster. Without EXP, I wouldn't even have been thinking in these terms. So I have on Workplace, which I never used before EXP, and I love it. I just brought in a new agent from, where the heck did he come from? I mean, I got someone from Mexico yesterday. It's like mind blowing. So I've got a group on Workplace, Castle's Luxury. I've got the mega MLS roster in Newton, Massachusetts, and I just brought on probably 3 or 4 agents this week. And then there's the downline, but then there's also the Castles Unlimited team. So all of these groups and rosters and downlines and teams feed into the castlesunlimited.com agent roster there.
Right.
And what we're doing is we're taking all the agents' headshots, bios, and links to their personal websites, linking it off of castlesunlimited.com. And Castles Unlimited is now sort of the umbrella for Castles Luxury,
Right.
Castles Commercial, and Castles Unlimited. And yeah, it's just like we're creating a network that only EXP would allow, basically.
Right. Right.
As a franchisee of, again, Keller Williams, for example, you couldn't do that.
No.
You couldn't do that. You'd run into a wall within 5 minutes. And
Well,
that's why
yeah.
EXP is
Your
EXP,
cards, your signs
because
are
it's because Keller Williams didn't allow Glenn Sanford to grow his team.
right.
And Glenn Sanford said, I want to grow.
Right.
So, and so he spread his need for growth and his entrepreneurialism and his vision for the future. He spread it out to all the agents in the world. Most of the agents haven't caught on yet. Most. I mean, let's face it,
Right.
there's
Right.
probably 20 million real estate agents in the world. So
Yeah.
we only have 83,000 now.
Yeah.
So there's a ways to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think all of that is really interesting. I think it's a little confusing to people because we're talking about workplace. Workplace is actually the meta world. So it's
No, it's
a
not. Not Meta World. It's Meta Workplace, but it's not the metaverse. It used to be Facebook Workplace, and it can be an app. It runs on desktop laptops also. I have the app for Workplace where there's different groups and there's news feeds, and all the agents at EXP are allowed a Workplace account. And then there's also chat, and you can direct message any of the agents. And that news feed alone saved me $3,000. I was being
right.
scammed.
Right.
Somebody was running a scam on EXP agents, and you know,
Right.
saved me a
A lot.
day's pay. Yeah.
Yeah. I know when I moved over from Keller Williams to Castles Unlimited, then ultimately, um, it was a significant savings in cap to begin with. I mean,
Well, yeah.
uh,
Well, that's the next thing, and you're not asking the question, so I'll ask it. So, Jim, what's the next thing?
hey Jim, what's the next thing?
The next thing at EXP, because I'm speaking to this broker in Florida. He and his mother are seriously thinking about joining EXP. When I called him, and he said, this top agent in my area, I think he said he might have even been the president of the Realtor board in his area. He said EXP is a really good company, but if you're joining now for the revenue share, you may be late. Okay. And he said to me, you know, and I want to build this legacy business for my family. I'm 28, I'm going to be 29 soon, and I really want to do a great thing for my family. And I said to him, what is happening now at EXP is the next big thing.
Right.
The first big thing was agents that didn't have caps, agents that may have had lower splits. They were attracted to the business model.
Right.
You know, 80% was certainly better. They were being offered 50 or 60%.
Right.
They didn't have a cap at all. They go, what's a cap? And they go, well, you go to 100%. But then they got the training and they got the mentoring, and then they became better agents.
Right.
And some of them, or many of them, became icon agents.
Right.
So now what I see is these agents at the Berkshire and the Caldwell and the
Compass.
Compass, Sotheby's, you know, they're top agents, but they don't have caps.
Right.
They don't have rev share. They don't have high splits in many cases. And some of them are in binding contracts. EXP doesn't bind anyone. If you want to leave, you know, there's no problem. You can leave. It's not going to affect your commission. And a lot of companies have all these little, I'd say, traps that are set in their contracts
to
you know,
protect
your
themselves.
Commission, once you leave, anything that hasn't closed rolls back to 45 or 50%, something like that. Yeah, you got 85 before, now you get 45.
Right.
You know, people stay sometimes even though they don't want to stay. Right. Because the longer they stay, the more things in the pipeline that haven't closed, and they just never leave. But I think agents, and I've noticed this because I never push, I just explain.
Right.
You know, and I'll ask someone just casually at a closing this week. And I figured the broker knows nothing about it, and sure enough, he didn't.
Right.
And I handed him a copy of my book, and I said, you know, you're probably good because I know how much his team makes between your cap being, oh, you don't have a cap. That's right. So now you'll have a cap. Plus your mom who's on your team, her cap will be half your cap, and so on and so forth. The other people in your team will also have these low caps, but you can still have the split and make the difference. I said, you're probably leaving 100,000 or a year, a year on the table. And he said, you really think so? So I know there's a follow-up conversation there.
Sure.
But I gave him my book, and I figure, you know, give him a week, see if he reads the book. People don't read. I think I'm going to go to YouTube or Audible or something.
I'm glad you said that because that's been in my head since the beginning. You know,
and start doing the book.
Yeah, I am a reader. I do like business books. I've read this book. One of the other things that you did for people that work with you is you created this that's my picture on your book, and it's something I can give away to someone that I'm talking to about it. And there you are. There's you on the back. It's well written. It's like talking to you. Is the way I've described it to other people. It's like having a conversation, and it isn't an academic book. It's a great conversation about every kind of aspect of real estate and why the industry is growing. I want to define one thing because we do have people that aren't agents, experienced agents. Like a cap is what you pay your company to get all of the resources that they have. And it's called cap because you hit the top of that. And companies that have a cap, then when you're past that, you don't pay them anything. You get all of the commission. And now that's not true with Remax or some of the others. There's still fees, but it's not, you're not paying your company.
Yeah, no, there's still fees. There's broker review, which is $25. There's risk management.
Right. But
40
it's not,
bucks.
yeah, but it's
The,
nothing
the,
like
the
20
small,
or 30 or
no,
40%.
you could have $100,000 commission, and some of these agents are not getting charged more than $100.
Yeah.
So $100 on 10,000, 20,000, whatever. It's de minimis,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
love to be accurate and completely transparent about it. Yeah,
Right.
because people say to me, "Oh, so at EXP, I become an icon agent because I'm definitely selling that number of transactions or that dollar amount. How did and they'll give me the cap back in company stock as a stock award. How does the company stay in business? How does it make money?" And it's just like they make it off of so many ways they make money. Believe me, profitable company, profitable enough to be buying back stock and paying a dividend,
Well,
and paying some agents, mind you, probably $1 million or more a month, even if they stop working tomorrow.
right.
That's mind blowing
Yeah.
to imagine a company that created a business model that's stable and sustainable and growing,
Right.
that is creating this much. Forget about the value that this company offers, by the way, for 85 bucks a month. It's soup to nuts, training, coaching, tech tools, you name it. And tools that some of us will never even get to because they offer so much. Um, this kind of wealth, it's why they're number one in real estate brokerages on Inc. Money and Glassdoor. Number
Right.
four of all the companies in the country. We're ahead of Google, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla,
Incredible. Yeah.
Pfizer. I
Right.
know,
Right.
really. You got to, Glenn is he's a visionary, and
Right.
I applaud him.
Do you
And I have
think,
to be the first to admit it. I did not see it when I first was introduced to it. I
right.
did not.
Well, it took me a couple of
It,
years
it,
too.
it didn't seem like it could possibly work.
Well, I think the reason for that, Jim, is it's almost too good to be true. And you look at it and you say, well, wait a minute, how in the world can they do that? And then you realize, well, they're a virtual company. They're a virtual company, but they spent millions creating the back end system to be able to have everybody online.
But that's an interesting fact right there. That Verbella that they bought, companies like Remax and Keller Williams, because I'm probably building an app right now, and there's companies out there that already have the tools, they have the tech, they have the programs. You don't have to reinvent the wheel if you spot the talent or the tool out there. And those two companies spent their own money to build tools that never worked. I think KW had something that basically they pulled the plug on after millions spent. So
And
uh,
touting it as we're that kind of we're a tech company. We're not a
Glenn's a smart guy. He's a tech guy that
yeah.
fell into real estate. It wasn't the other way around.
Well, and I find this with all the really successful agents today. He's a curious guy. He was always saying, "How can I do something better? What's better for it?" You're sitting there waiting for somebody, and they didn't call you, they didn't get in touch with you, and you're sitting there at 6:30. You'd rather be at home, but you're waiting for the. He just had the ability, and that's exactly when he started to think about this.
He
Um,
got frustrated and let his frustration guide him to what he wanted, and
exactly,
he figured out a path.
exactly, exactly. Um,
Hats off to Glenn.
Hats off to Glenn. Yeah. I've got my head over there. I'm too far away because I'm tethered to a bunch of
Okay,
wires here.
all right. You showed the book. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the book isn't about the book. The book is about the agent and how they
Right.
can leverage that book. That book is a tool that can change someone's life.
Right.
It's not even the words on the pages and how it'll affect that agent if they haven't joined yet. It's their knowledge passing on to somebody else, helping them change their life, if
It
that
gives
makes
them
sense.
more of a bird's eye view of how this industry actually works. And it's not a book about EXP, it's a book about the real estate industry from way back to right now.
Well,
And
that's the first book, your
right,
$1 million year.
right.
Not $1 million month is mostly about EXP.
Hmm.
And my next book will probably be 3 years to retirement. And, I know the show is wrapping up soon. So the 3 year part of it, what I want to tell everyone out there, if you're thinking of joining EXP and you're not thinking about it in a 3 year time period, don't even do it. I want you to commit. It's not contractual. I mean, there will be nothing in that agent agreement that's going to say you're locked in, but do yourself a favor. And maybe you need someone like me or Larry to be your guide, but there's so much to learn, and the talent that comes with joining the right sponsor and the right upline,
Yeah,
it's not gonna just change your business, it's gonna change your life. It really is that kind of thing. But you're not gonna get everything you need to know in a week or 3 months or even a year. I know that I have a long way to go.
yeah,
And also, as they start awarding you stock, it's going to be tied up for 3 years from the day you get that first share. So then what you're doing is you're accumulating all this wealth, and I'll give you this number before we part for the day. Icon agents at EXP between 2018 and July of 2021, $622,000 in stock. So just do the math. They get $200 for their first sale every year, $400 when they cap, and then they can earn back all 16,000 of the cap in stock. It just so happened the stock was roaring in those years, but just imagine most companies that 16,000 would have been much more to begin with,
right,
but it would have been kept by the company.
right.
They're not, I mean, Keller Williams, between the franchisee and the company, is keeping all that money.
Yeah,
There's no there's no way for them to funnel it back to you.
right,
But EXP is a publicly traded company.
right,
So I mean, it's genius and generous
right.
also. Plus, let's face it, it's a volatile stock, but it's also a stock that runs.
Yeah,
I mean, I found about it, the company when it was 19 cents a share, and I think before the split, it was like 100. It was like $150 a share.
wow.
I don't know where it completely capped out. It might have been topping out about 156 or something, whatever. And then it split, and then of course with the pandemic and now
Sure.
this next downturn in the market, but it came back with a vengeance this month.
Yeah, yeah.
So
One of the things that I've availed myself of is they also permit you to take 5% of your net commission and buy stock at a discounted rate. And it's all, especially if you're thinking of retiring at some point, you want to start putting more than one stream of income away. And that's something that EXP has done. And why when I joined with an idea of retiring in a very specific period of time.
you probably got some of that stock when the price was down.
I did.
See,
I did. I
this,
did.
this is a stock that gets cheaper when the price goes down. You get
Exactly.
you get more you get
Exactly.
more of it.
Yeah.
No joking,
Hey,
but
I
all
would play
joking.
us out, but for some reason, my music isn't playing. Yeah, I'm good. So, should we hum
If I
along?
fell, I'll sing. If I fell in love with you, would you promise to be true? Well, you can talk over me.
Yeah.
And
Okay. That's That's Jim talking.
understand.
Hey, join us next week for another episode of Broker Talk. And if you're around on Friday, Jim has a great show called The Exponential File. And he talks to luxury minded people, EXP agents from all over the world. Join in then. And I'll see you next week here at the Broker Talk. Thanks for joining.
But
Recording
I've been
stopped.
in love before.